Good morning, everybody. Is going to be in the book of Nehemiah this morning, starting off in chapter 1. As always, it's an honor and privilege to go into God's Word, to be in His presence, get a little bit closer to Him, studying His Word with my brothers and sisters. And again, we'll go ahead and get started this morning in the book of Nehemiah. And just a little background here. The children of Israel have been carried away into captivity at this point, and Nehemiah is in captivity himself also, and he is actually concerned about the state that Jerusalem is in, and that the wall's been torn down. We'll get into more about how this is kind of relevant today as we get into the lesson here again, but we're in Nehemiah, and we're starting in chapter 1. The words of Nehemiah, the son of Hachaliah. And it came to pass in the month of Chislew, in the 20th year, as I was in Shushan the palace, that Hananiah, one of my brethren, came, and he and certain men of Judah, and I asked them concerning the Jews that had escaped, which were left of the captivity, and concerning Jerusalem. And they said unto me, the remnant that are left of the captivity there in the province are in great affliction and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem also is broken down, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. And it came to pass, when I heard these words, that I sat down and wept, and mourned certain days, and fasted and prayed before God of heaven. So we have Nehemiah here, who obviously is in a connection with God. He has a relationship with Him, and it hurts him spiritually that he wept and fasted and mourned, knowing that Jerusalem was in dire straits that it had been in, and it was basically laying in waste, and that this was God's chosen people's place where He put them, and to see it in that kind of a broken down, destroyed place, it was making him actually weep. To think about that today, it's kind of like the state that we're living in and culture this now. That this country was founded on by godly men with godly principles, and the culture today has kind of like broke down those walls and that we put up. That God had shielded and protected us with, because we were serving Him and being obedient to Him, and we've left this country open because we've let invaders come in and tear down these spiritual walls that we've built up, and that standard that God gave us to live up to. And so we're struggling now. And there's hard times in this country, and we're pressed. And it's because we've let down, as a country. 60, 70 years ago, general population would claim that they were Christian and they did attend church, regular, irregular, whatever it may be. And nowadays, you ask and they say that probably less than half of the people in this country regularly attend church or claim any kind of faith whatsoever. And there's so much more of even that kind of just have whatever may come faith. They can live however they want to, as long as they check a couple boxes, attend a couple services, or whatever it may be, and they're not true worshipers of God. They don't have a true relationship with Him. Like Nehemiah had, obviously, that he was concerned, that Jerusalem was in dire straits. We need to spiritually look at this and, be concerned that this country's spiritual walls are being torn down and that it's being destroyed. And we can't expect God to continue to bless this country, to give us favor when we're living against His word and we're living in open sin, and we're accepting open sin in this country. So we need to be weeping, we need to be praying, we need to be fasting, we need to be mourning for this country, mourning for our loved ones and those that are around us, and be sad, that our spiritual walls, that standard, God's word, is being torn down in this country. And we need to look into that in our hearts and understand that, this is a spiritual battle. Just like this was a physical problem that Nehemiah had, it was also spiritual, because it was brought on by spiritual corruption, that God took His favor away, and that the Israelites were conquered, and the city was burnt, destroyed basically, and they were carried away as slaves. And some had got away or been released, whatever it may have been, was back, but they were in dire straits because they had no protection, they had no shield, the wall was torn down. And so he was concerned about that. We need to be the same way spiritually now. We need to start praying, seeking him, and working to build these spiritual walls back up around our lives, our families, and in our country. Moving on, verse 5. And said, I beseech thee, O Lord God of heaven, the great and terrible God, that keepeth covenant and mercy for them that love him and observe his commandments. And he's crying out to God saying, hey, we know who you are. You're great and terrible. You're mighty. You're awesome. But you've disciplined us because we erred from you. And he's like, have mercy on us. He's saying that you keep your covenants. You have mercy. And let us turn back to you. Let thine ear now be attentive, and thine eyes open, that thou mayest hear the prayer of thy servant, which I pray before thee now, day and night, for the children of Israel thy servants, and confess the sins of the children of Israel, which we have sinned against thee. Both I and my father's house have sinned. So he's starting off here saying, God, you're awesome, you're great, but you're great and terrible when you have to do discipline. But we know that you have mercy, you have grace, and open your ears, open your eyes, look at us, hear our prayers, and understand that we confess that we sinned. And that's the first part about this. We have to understand where we failed him. And when we sin, it's against God, it's against his word, it's against his commandment that he's gave us. So we need to repent, and we need to seek him out and say, hey, I messed up. I'm sorry. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to move forward. I want to repair that relationship that I had with you. And that's what Nehemiah is doing for the people. He's saying, my generation, me, my father's generation before me, we've sinned against you. And we know this, and we understand how we've erred in our ways, and we want to fix this. We have dealt very corruptly against thee, and have not kept the commandments, nor the statutes, nor the judgments, which thou commandest thy servant Moses. And he's saying, you gave us the law. We knew what to do. It was taught to us. We understood it, and we varied from it. We went astray. We rebelled. So this is all on us. And he's saying, when we admit that, we understand. We know. We are at fault here. It's nothing against you, God. You dealt fairly with us, and you've been just and upright and truthful. We erred. Remember, I beseech thee, the word that thou commanded thy servant Moses, saying, if ye transgress, I will scatter you abroad among the nations. And he said, so he's saying, he goes, we're in the trouble we're in because we rebelled against you. We denied your truth. We decided to go our way. We decided to do things our way, not yours. And so you held up to your word. You told us that if we did this, you would, scatter us abroad. And that's exactly what happened. So he's saying we messed up, we sinned, and we're in this situation because of what we done. So you're still just, and you're still holy because you did exactly what you said you would do. And this word will always be fulfilled. If God said it, that's what it is. So he's saying, we know this is true, and we know it's our fault. I said, going on, but if ye turn unto me, and keep my commandments, and do them, though thou were of you cast out unto the uttermost part of the heaven, yet will I gather them from thence, and will bring them unto the place that I have chosen to set my name there. So again, he's saying, but we have hope. Nehemiah said, because if we turn back away from these wicked ways, if we go back to his commandments and we do what we're supposed to do, and we serve him, and we, no matter how far out scattered we were, he can bring us back together, and he can reunite us together with him back where he put us and chose us place to be, which will be back at Jerusalem, where he chose for his people to be. The chosen people were supposed to be there. He's saying, we're calling out to you. We're admitting, we're confessing, we're calling out to you, we're seeking salvation from you. We want you to return us here, back where we belong, in your presence, where you've chosen us to be, in your will, following you and being obedient to you and being faithful to you. Now these are thy servants and thy people, whom thou hast redeemed by thy great power and by thy strong hand. He's saying, we're your people, we're your servants. And he goes, and we believe that you can redeem us and bring us back. And we know that you can and you will when we turn to you and obey your word and do our part. We know you're more than faithful to do yours. O Lord, I beseech thee, let now thine ear be attentive to the prayer of thy servant, and to the prayer of thy servants, who desire to fear thy name and prosper. I pray thee, thy servant, this day, and grant him mercy in the sight of this man, for I was the king's cupbearer. And he's saying to them, he goes, God, he goes, I'm a servant to this earthly king that, captured my fathers and brought us in. And he says, but I know that you're mightier. You have power. You have authority over him. He said, you can turn his heart and give me favor. If I would turn to you and with your power and your strong hand, you can deliver me favor with this man so that I can go back and do the things that I need to do to prepare my people for their return to Jerusalem. And so he's saying, that this king that he has to serve, this earthly king, there's a physical ruler over him, but he's saying, God, you're the spiritual ruler. You have more power and authority than all the kings in this world. He said, so I ask you to turn favor with him for me. Going on, chapter 2. And it came to pass in the month Nisan, in the 20th year of Artaxerxes the king, that wine was before him, and I took up the wine, and gave it unto the king. Now I had not been beforetime sad in his presence. Wherefore the king said unto me, Why is thy countenance sad, seeing thou art not sick? This is nothing else but sorrow of heart. Then I was very sore afraid. So he's saying that, he came from the king, and he saw that he was sad, and he couldn't hide his feelings, that he was upset about that, the land of his fathers was in ruins. And the king took notice of this and said, hey, I know there's something wrong, and you don't look sick. And he was, so I know that it's a matter of your heart that you're troubled. And so God's opening this door. He's showing, Artaxerxes that, this guy's got something going on, and he's inquiring, hey, what's going on? And said unto the king, Let the king live forever. Why should not my countenance be sad, when the city, the place of my fathers' sepulchres, lieth waste, and the gates thereof are consumed with fire? And so he's saying, well, I've heard this report about, where I came from and where my fathers were, where my fathers are buried, where our land is. It's laying waste and it's destroyed, and the gates are tore down and consumed with fire. It's been destroyed. So I'm sad. His home is gone. It's been destroyed and tore down. Then the king said unto me, For what dost thou make request? So I prayed to the God of heaven. And so the king gave him this option. He said, hey, what do you want me to do? What do you need from me? I'm going to help you out, because God's turned favor for Nehemiah with this king, earthly king. And so he said, I said unto the king, If it please the king, and if thy servant have found favor in thy sight, that thou wouldest send me unto Judah, unto the city of my father's sepulchres, that I may build it. And the king said unto me, the queen also sitting by him, For how long shall thy journey be, and when wilt thou return? So it pleased the king to send me, and I set him a time. So then they discussed what he needed, what he was going to do. And so he's found favor here, because he's saying, God, I'm going to serve you. And that's how things work out. When we're working with God, we're being obedient. He's called us to do something. He's going to make a way. He's always going to be faithful. He doesn't tell us to go do something and then just dump it all on us. And we have to figure out how to do it, what we're going to have to do to get there. He always gives us the instructions. He opens the door. He gives us opportunity. And he provides everything. We just have to show up with that willing attitude to surrender ourselves fully to him and be obedient to him and walk with him and do what he says in the way he tells us to do. He's going to give us instructions. He's going to give us all the supplies and everything that we need. We just got to follow through and be obedient. So that's what Nehemiah's done, and he's found favor, and that's what's happening here. So going back spiritually speaking, to this situation we're in this country now, that's what we need to do. We need to be praying to God, said, hey, show us what we need to do. Show me what I can do to help my family, to help my friends, to help the people in my circles of influence, when I'm at work, or, my hobbies, or while I'm out and about in the stores, or wherever I am, that we carry that presence of God in us, that people are drawn to us that need help, and we need to be open to that. And we need to be turning things back around and, shunning sin and seeking God and say, hey, God, how can we build up our walls in this country again? How can we build up walls around our house spiritually, to protect us from the enemy and all the evil and the sin that's out there in this world? we need to be doing these things too and seeking him. And let's see. Moreover, I said to the king, if it please the king, let letters be given me to the governors beyond the river, that they may convey me over till I come into Judah. And a letter unto Asaph the keeper of the king's forest, that he may give me timber to make beams for the gates of the palace, which appertain to the house, and for the wall of the city, and for the house that I shall enter into. And the king granted me, according to the good hand of my God upon me. So here again, like I was saying, he's got this work to do, and he's just a servant to this king in a foreign country, so he doesn't have the resources to go back and to rebuild this wall. He doesn't have that, so he's asked the king for that, and the king said, hey, you know what? Go ahead, I'm going to give you my permission. I'm going to write these letters so that you go and you get whatever it is you need to go do this task that, you're wanting to do. It's your heart's desire. He's granting him this. God's give him that favor and blessed him, and God's provided, through this earthly king here. And so it's, again, like I said, God's not ever going to ask you to bear the full brunt of everything. He's going to provide for you if you're obedient and you're serving him, and he's called you to do something. He's going to provide a way. He's always going to make that way. Then I came to the governors beyond the river and gave them the king's letters. Now the king had sent captains of the army and horsemen with me. When Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, heard of it, it grieved them exceedingly that there was come a man to seek the welfare of the children of Israel. Now here again, if you've walked any amount of time in this spiritual walk with God and you've served him when he's called you to do something, Paul even talks about it in the New Testament often, saying, that whenever I'm here to do good, evil's always going to be present. So, so Nehemiah's come to do this task for God. He's being obedient, he's serving him, and he's doing this good task for the chosen people of God. And so there's already naysayers. As soon as he shows up, they're waiting like, well, what do you think you're doing? What is this? And there's always going to be somebody there to mock you, to make fun of you, to try to slow you down, to try to stop you from doing what God has called you to do. That wasn't, any different in Nehemiah's time than it is now, and it's still the same now. Evil's always going to show up to test your faith, to see, how true you are to this God, and how deep your faith runs, and how faithful you're going to be to him. And that's not God testing you, that's the devil. The devil's the one that tempts you, so we just need to hang strong and know that God's called us to do this. I'm going to do this for him, and just let the naysayers mock, let them do what they do. God will take care of them in his own time. So I came to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. And I arose in the night, and I and some few men with me, neither told I any man what my God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem. Neither was there any beast with me, save the beast that I rode upon. And I went out by night by the gate of the valley, even before the dragon well, and to the dung port, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and the gates thereof were consumed with fire. Then I went on to the gate of the fountain, and to the king's pool, but there was no place for the beast that was under me to pass. Then went I up in the night by the brook, and viewed the wall, and turned back, and entered by the gate of the valley, so returned. And the rulers knew not whither I went, or what I did, neither had I as yet told it to the Jews, nor to the priests, nor to the nobles, nor to the rulers, nor to the rest that did the work. So he went out here and he actually surveyed what was going on. He took count of what was going on, what he needed to do, and he was like making a mental note there of like, this is the things I got to do, this is the situation that I'm in. We need to do that in our lives too. We need to look and say, hey, where's the gaps in my wall? Where's the gaps in my defense, in my armor? Is there any chinks in the armor? Is there any pieces missing of my spiritual armor to fight these battles that I'm in? This is a spiritual thing too. This is a physical story here with Nehemiah and what they were going through, but this translates to us as spiritually. Like, where's the enemy getting in my life? Where have I let down? Where's my walls broke down? What can I do to strengthen myself spiritually to fight this battle? And so he's taken, inventory here of like what's going on, what he needs to do, and all the work he needs to do, and he's planning for that. And so he's making sure he knows what he needs to do and to carry out all these things. And so there's not going to be any gaps in the walls, and he's getting a survey of here what he's got to do. When you do that with ourselves, see where we're lacking, pray to God, show us in a way we can understand where I fail you or where the enemy could get in, and what I'm doing good, what I'm doing bad, show me. And that's what Nehemiah's doing here physically. We need to do that spiritually with ourselves. Verse 17, Then said I unto them, Ye see the distress that we are in, how Jerusalem lieth waste, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. Come and let us build up the wall of Jerusalem, that we be no more a reproach. So here again, Nehemiah couldn't do this by himself, but God's already provided people that are there that are wanting to help, that maybe had the same call on them, or that had a like call that would go together to work with him. And so they're coming together. God's drawing other people. He's providing resources. He's providing everything that he needed to do. But somebody had to step up first and be faithful. Take that first step. We take that first step, and God will take all the rest of them and carry us and help us. As long as we're being obedient with him and we continue that walk with him, he'll carry us through. Then I told them of the hand of my God, which was good upon me, as also the king's words that he had spoken unto me. And they said, Let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for this good work. And again, so he's proclaiming, look, God's called me to do this. He's blessed me. And he's turned the favor of this king. So we have permission to do this, physically, on earth here. And we also have this spiritual permission. It's God's called us to do this. And so that's encouraged the people, and he shared that, but he's saying, giving credit to God first. He said, God, the hand of God is upon this, and this good work we're going to do. So everybody got strengthened, they got excited about this, and they're going to go about it. But when Sanballat the Horonite, and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, and Geshem the Arabian heard it, they laughed us to scorn and despised us, and said, What is this thing that ye do? Will ye rebel against the king? So, they were seeing this, like I said, there's always going to be those naysayers. There's going to be those that are in the dark, that are lost, that are workers of iniquity, and they're going to call you out. They said they laughed them to scorn, and they despised them and mocked them and said, What do you think you're doing? And they didn't understand what was going on. Maybe they did, but they just didn't want to have nothing to do with it. And so they were trying to discourage them any way they could. When they realized that mocking them wasn't going to work, then they said, oh, well, you're trying to rebel against the king. And so they were going to try to stir up rumors. They were going to try to start up lies and start a counteroffensive here to try to stop these people without having to get their own hands dirty. They were going to try to turn the people against him. They were going to try to maybe get the king back involved, or the king's people, saying, hey, they're doing this to rebel against you, whatever it may be. But that's what they're trying to do here, and stir up trouble. Same thing with us. When we're trying to do good, evil's always going to be present. There'll be people talking about you. I mean, they may be rumors. They'll try to work against you. They'll try to stop what you're doing. We just have to keep carrying on, and keep moving forward. Then answered I them, and said unto them, The God of heaven, he will prosper us. Therefore we his servants will arise and build, but ye have no portion, nor right, nor memorial in Jerusalem. So he's saying, hey, look, my God's called me to do this. He's blessed this. It's going to happen if we do the work and we're obedient. And you have no part of this. This is not really any of your business. If you're not here to help, stay out of the way. It's like, this is not anything to do with you. This is the work that I'm doing, that we're doing. If you want to help, help. But if not, stay out of our way. So it's basically what he's telling them to do. And sometimes we have to do that. There's people in our lives sometimes we have to cut out, that we have to, push to the side, get them out of the way, and or move around them, or, do whatever we got to do to keep moving forward, and to make sure that God's first, and we're following him, and we're not going to let anybody distract us. We're not going to let anybody to beat us down or keep us out of the way, and let him handle those people that are in the way, that are trying to keep us from doing what he's called us to do. Nehemiah chapter 3. Then Eliashib the high priest rose up with his brethren the priests, and they builded the sheep gate. They sanctified it, and set up the doors of it, even unto the tower of Meah. They sanctified it unto the tower of Hananiel. And next unto him builded the men of Jericho, and next to them builded Zakur the son of Imri. But the fish gate did the sons of Hassenaah build, who also laid the beams thereof, and set up the doors thereof, the locks thereof, and the bars thereof. And next unto them repaired Meremoth, the son of Urijah, the son of Koz. And next unto them repaired Meshullam, the son of Berechiah, the son of Meshezabeel. And next unto them repaired Zadok, the son of Baanah. And next unto them the Tekoites repaired, but their nobles put not their necks to the work of the Lord. Moreover, the old gate repaired Jehoiada, the son of Peshiah, and Meshullam, the son of Besodiah. They laid the beams thereof, and set up the doors thereof, and the locks thereof, and the bars thereof. And next unto them repaired Melatiah the Gibeonite, and Jadon the Meronothiah, the men of Gibeon and of Mizpah, unto the throne of the governor on this side the river. Next unto him repaired Uzziel, the son of Harhaiah of the goldsmiths. Next unto him also repaired Hananiah, the son of one of the apothecaries, and they fortified Jerusalem unto the broad wall. And next unto them repaired Rephaniah, the son of Hur, the ruler of the half part of Jerusalem. And next unto them repaired Jedaiah, the son of Harumab, even over against his house. And next unto him repaired Hattush, the son of Hashbruana, Malchijah, the son Haram, and Hashub, the son of Pahath Moab, repaired the other piece, and the tower of the furnaces. And next unto him repaired Shalom, the son of Halohesh, the ruler of the half part of Jerusalem, he and his daughters. The valley gate repaired Hanan, and the inhabitants of Zenoah. They built it, and set up the doors thereof, the locks thereof, and the bars thereof, and 1,000 cubits on the wall unto the dung gate. But the dung gate repaired Malachi, the son of Rechab, the ruler of part of Beth Haxerim. He built it, and set up the doors thereof, the locks thereof, and the bars thereof. But the gate of the fountain repaired Shalon, the son of Kolhez, the ruler of a part of Mizpah. He built it, and covered it, and set up the doors thereof, the locks thereof, and the bars thereof, and the wall of the pool of Siloah by the king's garden, and unto the stairs that go down from the city of David. After him repaired Nehemiah, the son of Azbuk, the ruler of the half part of Bethzor, unto the place over against the sepulchres of David, and to the pool that was made, and into the house of the mighty. After him repaired the Levites, Rehum, the sons of Benaiah. Next unto him repaired Hashabiah, the ruler of the half part of Keilah, and his part. After him repaired their brethren, Beviah, the son of Henadad, the ruler of the half part of Keilah. And next to him repaired Ezer, the son of Jeshua, the ruler of Mizpah, another piece over against the going up to the armory at the turning of the wall. After him Baruch the son Zabiah earnestly repaired the other piece from the turning of the wall unto the door of the house of Elishab the high priest. After him repaired Meremoth, the son of Urijah, the son of Koz, another piece from the door of the house of Elishab, even to the end of the house of Elishab. And after him repaired the priests, the men of the plain. After him repaired Benjamin and Hashub over against their house. After him repaired Azariah, the son of Maaseiah, the son of Ananiah, and by his house. After him repaired Benuah, the son of Henadad, another piece from the house of Azariah unto the turning of the wall, even unto the corner. Palal the son of Uzziah over against the turning of the wall, and the tower which lieth out from the king's high horse, the king's high house, that was by the court of the prison. After him, Pedaiah the son of Parosh. Moreover, the Nethinims dwelt in Ophel unto the place over against the water gate toward the east, and the tower that lieth out. After them, the Tekoites repaired another piece over against the great tower that lieth out, even unto the wall Ophel. From above the horse gate repaired the priest, every one over against his house. After them repaired Zadok the son of Amar over against his house. After him repaired also Shemaiah the son of Shechaniah, the keeper of the east gate. After him repaired Hananiah the son of Shelemiah, and Hanan the sixth son of Zalaph another piece. After him repaired Meshullam the son of Berechiah over against his chamber. After him repaired Malachik the goldsmith's son unto the place of the Nethinims and of the merchants over against the gate Mipked, and to the going up of the corner. And between the going up of the corner unto the sheep gate repaired the goldsmiths and the merchants. So this chapter here is just listing all the work that everybody was doing, how everybody chipped in. Everybody had a role. Everybody had a piece of the wall to do. They had a specific job to do. So, this tells us that, not everybody's going to have the exact same job to do. Everybody's going to have their work and what they need to do. And that together, Nehemiah couldn't have built this wall by himself. So he needed help. Everybody had to step up and do their little part, to do their job, to do their section of this wall. Spiritually looking at the church today, everybody needs to step up and do their little part and put it all together, and then we can build this back up. We can build this wall of spiritual protection, of blessing, of defense. We can strengthen the church. We can strengthen ourselves and our families by doing this, but we have to help each other. We have to come together, and each and every little part and every little section is just as important as the next, because if they build 90% of the wall and 10% of the people didn't show up to do their part, then that part of the wall is not built, and there's a hole there. There's a gap. It makes a weakness in the wall. And so, if everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, then that's going to be a gap. That's going to be a weakness in the church, spiritually speaking. So everybody's got that role to do, and it's just as important as everybody else's role. There's no big I's and little U's in this. If God's called you to do something, no matter how small, no matter how big, whatever it is, it all works together in His plan, and we come together to do this, to make sure that His will is done, and that we can move forward with His blessing and His favor as much as we can, that because we work together and helped each other, and we come together. And that's another reason why this culture that we're in is so dangerous, because it wants to divide us and separate us and make us turn and fight amongst ourselves and not want to help and love each other. And that's not what God's taught us. That's not what Jesus has taught us. Jesus loved us enough to lay down His life for us, so that we could be saved and we could repair that relationship with God. We need to love each other that same way, and take care of our brothers and sisters and help them and work side by side with them. And carrying on into that thought there, Nehemiah chapter 4. But it came to pass that when Sanballat heard that we builded the wall, he was wroth and took great indignation and mocked the Jews. So again, there's work being done, there's progress being made, things are happening, God's moving, and things are starting to look up for the Israelites here. And so the enemy raises up that people against him, and people stirs people against him, and people are getting angry. Sanballat's like, hey, something's going on here, and I didn't like this. I didn't think these fools were actually going to make this happen, and now look what they're doing. So he's mocking them, he's angry, and he's distraught that this actually happening. And that's what happens. People, when they start off to try to keep you from getting started doing the work, and then you kind of ignore them and go on and do what you're supposed to do, they get angry and say, hey, look, something's happening here, and they get mad, they get jealous, whatever it may be. So he's angry here. He's trying to stir up the people against him, against this work. And he spake before his brethren and the army of Samaria, and said, What do these feeble Jews? Will they fortify themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they make an end in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of the rubbish which are burned? And so he's saying, they're going to try to make this happen. He goes, they're weak, they're foolish. It's like, what do they think they're doing here? And he's trying to talk himself up. He's seen that they're moving and that what his initial thoughts were wrong. But now he's trying to backtrack and trying to justify himself. And he's trying to, work against God's people. And you see this happen, all the time when somebody steps out in faith and is doing something they're called to do. There's somebody jealous. There's somebody that didn't think it should happen, or they're dark, or they're in the lost, and they're broken, and they don't know what's going on, and they don't want to see somebody else be successful and succeed when they're walking in the light. And that's exactly what he's doing here. And he's saying, hey, we got to stop this. Now Tobiah the Ammonite was by him, and he said, even that which they build, if a fox go up, he shall even break down their stone wall. He's saying, oh, they're just putting on a show. They're not for real. This is fake. It's not a real wall. It's just cheap. Any little thing's going to knock this down, and it's going to come through that this isn't really as glorious, or it's not really God moving. It's just that they're just putting a show on. And so they're trying to tear down what these Jewish people are doing and what Nehemiah's work's doing. You'll get people do that too, especially if you've had a dark past and you've had a lot of sin and darkness, whatever it is. But when you truly repent and you're born again and you change, there's always going to be somebody there in your past that's going to try to bring you down, tear you down, say, hey, you're not ever going to be anything because of what you were. You were in ruins. You're never going to be restored to this glory that, that Jerusalem was once before. That's what they're saying. Spiritually speaking, people are going to try to do it to you too. Don't listen to them. If you've had that experience with Jesus Christ and you've repented and been covered in that blood and you're spirit filled and God's moving you and changing you and making you a new person, you are a new person. And move forward and forget your past. Your past is dead. You're a new creature. And that's what they're doing here in Nehemiah. He's saying, yeah, our past was a mess, but he said God's moving. He's found favor on us, and we are going to go back to our former glory because under God's authority. But spiritually speaking, we can do that again through Jesus Christ. So don't let the naysayers tear you down and try to pull you back to where you were. God's put a calling on your life, and he wants you to be successful, and when we're obedient to him, we can be successful. Verse 4. Hear, O our God, for we are despised, and turn their reproach upon their own head, and give them for a prey in the land of captivity. So he's saying, look, we're here doing what you called us to do. We're being obedient to you. We're serving you, and these people are calling us out. They're despised. They're fighting against us. They're trying to tear down what you've asked us to do. They're not really fighting us. They're trying to fight you. So, turn this around on them, deliver us from them, and deliver them to their own evil. And cover not their iniquity, and let not their sin be blotted out from before thee, for they have provoked thee to anger before the builders. And there's a lot of power in this and what he's saying. He's saying these people mock you, God. They're mocking what you've asked us to do. They're not just, they know what they're doing. They know that we're your people and that we're doing your work and this is what your will is. And they're mocking that. And they're mocking you. And he's saying, call their sins out. Show them, let them not be blotted out because they've mocked you. They've blasphemed you. You're the living God of Israel and this world, this universe. You're the master creator, and they're your creation, and they're calling out you and basically saying that you're dead, you're not alive, that you're not anything, and that they were trying to stop your people from doing the work you called them to do. He's saying turn their evil upon them and let them be destroyed of their own hand. So built we the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work. There's a lot of power in that too. You think about this. That said the people had a mind to work. They came together. One mind, one accord. What does this sound familiar with? This is what we're called to do. To come together, work together, to stand shoulder to shoulder with each other, following Christ as he leads us to God. These people come together on this wall, and that's what they did. They worked together. They got the work done little by little. They didn't get discouraged. They encouraged each other when one might have got a little downhearted or whatever it may be, and they helped each other, and they had a mind to work for God, and they were obedient. They laid down their time. I got to thinking about this, and I'm like, these people, they had to grow their own crops. They had to tend their own animals. They had jobs they had to do, and they put those aside to put God first and to go do His work first. And so He provided for them and took care of them. And He blessed them for making a sacrifice of their time and putting Him first. They could have made all kinds of excuses like, well, I need to tend my sheep, or I need to tend my cattle, or I need to tend my crops in my field, or I'm sure they had children and they had families and things like that they needed to tend to. But they said, hey, we're going to do this for God and put Him first. And then they were blessed, and they completed these tasks because they did that. They were fully laid down and surrendered to God and obedient to Him, and He rewarded them and blessed them through this. We need to make sure we're doing that. That we don't make any excuses and we don't put anything before God. If we do everything in proper order, we'll be able to have time to take care of our families, to do our jobs and all the things that we need to do, because God, He allows for that. We need to work and provide for our families and ourselves, but He has to be first. We can't get it out of order. And these people that Nehemiah were working with, and Nehemiah, they put God first, and then God delivered, as He always will. He's always faithful to us. But it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabians and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were made up and that the breaches began to be stopped, then they were very wroth, and conspired all of them together to come and to fight against Jerusalem and to hinder it. Nevertheless, we made our prayer unto our God and set a watch against them day and night because of them. So while they were working, they made sure that they were paying attention to what was going on. They were looking, they were watching while they worked, and they kept their eyes open and looking forward. Spiritually speaking, this is what we need to be doing now. As we were building up the church, God's using us to draw people and turn them to Christ, that He can save them and add numbers to the church. It's Christ that's saving them. But, we need to be doing the work to point these people to Him, living a life that's holy and pure, and, telling people about Jesus and spreading this gospel, so that it can save this world. While we're about doing our business and the work that we're doing, we need to be paying attention to the enemy and what they're doing and beware, so that we're ready to fight against them and be ready for whatever they're going to throw at us. And that's what these Israelites were doing. They were praying to God, say, hey, the enemy's moving, we're trusting in You, we're doing this work, but we're ready, and they're going on. And Judah said, the strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish, so that we are not able to build the wall. And our adversaries said, they shall not know neither see till we come in the midst among them and slay them and cause the work to cease. And it came to pass that when the Jews which dwelt by them came, they said unto us 10 times, from all places whence ye shall return unto us, they will be upon you. And so they had lookouts. They had people saying that the enemy was gathered together, and they were going to look for weak places to come in and attack and to slay the workers and stop this work. Therefore I set in the lower places behind the wall, and on the higher places I even set the people after their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked back and rose up and said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, be not ye afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your houses. So He brought the families together, and He brought He gave them the weapons and laid it out, and He said, we're going to be ready if they come, but remember, the Lord goes before us. This is His fight, and He will deliver the enemies to us. But we got to fight. We got to do what's right. We got to stand up. If we are obedient and we stand up for God, He'll stand up for us and He'll deliver us. So He's saying, remember what we're doing this for. This is for God. This is for our families. This is where our home is. It's where we're going to come back to, and we got to defend this. And if we're obedient to God, He'll deliver the enemies to our hands. And it came to pass, when our enemies heard that it was known unto us, and God had brought their counsel to naught, that we returned all of us to the wall, every one to his work. And it came to pass from that time forth, that the half of my servants wrought in the work, and the other half of them held both the spears, the shields, and the bows, and the habergeons and the rulers were behind all the house of Judah. They which builded on the wall, and they that bare burdens with those that laid, every one with one of his hands wrought in the work, and with the other hand held a weapon. For the builders, every one had his sword guarded by his side, and so builded, and he that sounded the trumpet was by me. So he was saying here that, they had the one hand to the work of God, and they had their other hand ready to fight, to protect that work that they were doing. So they had God's favor, they had God's blessing, but they were prepared to keep doing the work, and they were prepared to defend that work. And so they had their minds made up, they had their minds to work and to focus, and they were ready for the enemy. So when we're working and we're out there working for the Lord, we know that the enemy's going to come, because wherever good is, there's a presence of good that's going to be working. The presence of evil will be there also. We've already talked about that, and we understand that, so we need to be ready. So we have to have that armor on. We have to have our weapon by our side. So we're studying this word. We have it in our heart. We have our Bibles in our hearts and our minds and on our lips and our tongues and our heads, our minds, our words, because this Bible is our weapon. This word, when we have this word in us, it's going to fill us. It's going to give us hope. It's going to defeat the enemy. That's how Christ defeated his enemies. He always said, the word says, my Father has said. It's always the word. It's always the truth. That's how we're going to fight our battles, is the truth, because the truth cannot be destroyed. They can try to cover it up. For some time they may, but the truth always comes out. It's always going to come to light, because it is light. It's going to shed that darkness. It's going to break through. So we need to be ready when we're working to defend ourselves with this word, with the truth, and then what God's called us to do. So we have to be ready when we're working. We're ready for the enemy. We're ready to fight the enemy too. But we got to keep working. We got to be ready to do both. He's called us to do both, and that's what they were doing here. They were prepared, and the enemy wasn't successful against them because they were prepared and ready, because they were walking in that obedience of God, and they were ready, to do whatever he called them to do. We have to be that way also. And he that sounded the trumpet was by me, and I said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, the work is great and large, and we are separated upon the wall, one far from another. In what place, therefore, ye hear the sound of the trumpet, resort ye thither unto us. Our God shall fight for us. And so he's saying here, we're spread out on this wall trying to fill these gaps in. And he goes, so there's a small group here, there's a small group there. He goes, and if the enemy tries to come in and attack one group, we're going to sound the horn, and everybody's going to come running to defend their brothers and sisters. They're going to help each other. So again, this is where this culture that's out here now is so toxic, because it wants to divide us. It wants to separate us. It wants to keep us from coming together to help each other and support each other. Just because we see things just a little bit different than our brothers and sisters, that doesn't mean that we hate them and we're going to leave them all if they're on their own. We have to come together. We have to come together in Christ, in one mind and one accord. But aside all those small differences, and do the work that he's called us to do. We have to come together. That's what we were called to do. We weren't supposed to be separated. We have to come together. United we stand, divided we fall. That's where we get this idea. And it's right here. This is a biblical principle. This country wasn't the first one to come up with that. It's like the founding fathers knew this. They probably knew this story. They understood this idea, that when God's people stand together, they can accomplish more, and it's harder for the enemy to come against them. God will provide when we follow his will and are obedient. So we protect each other, we help each other, we serve each other just like Christ. He was willing to lay down his life for us. We need to be the same for our brothers and sisters. And when we can do that and we can support each other, we're a family, we're a one, we come together, we're that church that Christ is going to come back for. So we labored in the work, and half of them held the spears from the rising of the morning until the stars appeared. So they worked day and night. They were ceaseless in their work. We need to be the same way, especially as we see that this time that we're in, that we may be on the doorsteps of Christ's return at any moment. We need to be laboring day and night while we can. Rest at night and get ready and do the work again in the morning. We got to be ready. We got to be prepared. We got to be prepared to do the work. We got to be prepared to fight when he calls us to. And we got to, be ready to go, spiritually speaking, to fight this enemy in the darkness with the truth, which is this word. Likewise, at the same time said I unto the people, let every one with his servant lodge within Jerusalem, that in the night they may be a guard to us, and labor on the day. So, they kept close to their work. They slept there with the wall close to it to work, so they would be ready to stand up and fight if the enemy came in at night. They had to be ready all the time. We have to keep that mindset and be always prepared, be instant in season and out of season, be ready, because the enemy is going to attack when we least expect it. So if we're always looking, we're always ready. If we're together as a team, we can help each other when one's weak or one's tired. Someone else can take that watch, and we support each other. Again, there's just the Spirit keeps speaking to me about unity, coming together, and not turning on one another, but helping each other, encouraging each other. And till the Lord comes back, we got to help each other make it home. So neither I, nor my brethren, nor my servants, nor the men of the guard which followed me, none of us put off our clothes, saving that every one put them off for washing. So he said they stayed on the task until it was complete. They only took the minimum rest that they had to do, and they stayed prepared and ready. We have to do the same thing. Be ready and all the time. Be ready. We're not taking spiritual breaks. We're not taking time off to try to turn back to this world. But we have to keep our minds ready, our hearts ready, our souls prepared, because Christ could come at any time, and we have to be ready and prepared for that. We have to help our brethren do the same and get ready. And just love each other and work together, and keep moving forward and keep being obedient to Him. And even when this world and this culture that we're in tells us that we're dumb, we're stupid, that it's outdated, that this God doesn't exist, that it's old ways and it's fairy tales, we know the truth. We know this word is the truth. And when they mock us, that just is a sign for us to know that we're on the right path, that the enemy has seen that we're doing something and we're moving, and that's why he chooses to attack us, because he sees that we're doing something that's counteractive to him, and it's going to be blessed by God. The enemy's going to try to show up and stomp it out. But if we stick close to Him and we're faithful to Him, we're obedient, God will provide a way for us, and He'll take care of the enemy if we stay faithful to Him. And so again, keep praying, keep reading this word, keep studying, keep helping each other out. That's why we got to come together at church, to use our gifts and our talents together to fill in all these gaps in the spiritual wall that's here now, that we can build this church back up strong and be ready for Jesus when He returns. And so that's where we're at this morning. We'll end here, and just help each other along, encourage each other, and keep working. Be ready. Be ready to work, and be ready to fight spiritually these battles, because He prepared us for this time. None of us are here by mistake. He's brought us here, and we're prepared and ready for this time that we're in. And He's brought us here, and so it is a scary time. But when we stay faithful to Him and we walk in the Spirit and the truth and where He's called us to be, we're made for this time. And we're gonna deliver this church to Him and to Christ when He gets here, because we're gonna be ready. If we're willing to work and fight and do these spiritual things that He's asked us to do, we're going to be ready when He comes back, and it's going to be all worth it. When we make it and we cross through and we spend eternity with God and Christ in heaven, it's going to be all worth it. So don't grow weary. Don't grow weary of the work. And if you are, speak to somebody, pray about it, support each other. If you see a brother or sister struggling, tell them you're going to make it. Because God won't allow you to fail if you're obedient to Him, and if you keep clinging to Him, He'll carry us through. So that's what we got this morning. I love you all, and just keep your head up and keep working.